Watch this video before converting a van. This week we're going to break down the steps it takes to do a van and do it right. So if you're looking to get into van life, if you've got a van already, or if you're mid-build, you're going to want to watch this to find out what we did to convert two vans, starting with our Fiat Ducato right at the very start of our van build journey, and then most recently turning a really old and knackered T4 into a super functional tiny home on wheels. Safe to say we've got a bit of knowledge when it comes to building vans. First things first, you've got to find a van that is right for you. If you're coming from driving a little Fiat 500, it's probably not a great idea to jump straight into a massive van build. You need to be thinking about things like, do you want to stand up in it? Do you want to have a shower? Do you want to have certain things which you can only put in a big van conversion? Or could you do without those things and bring the size of the van down and make a few compromises to get a smaller van conversion that can get places a lot easier, saving you money, time and hassle, especially when traveling. This is a really important decision that you'll make right at the very start of your journey, so make it the right one. Once you've figured out what van you've got and you've got it in your possession, you need to work out what you want to spend on the actual build. Figure out exactly what you want in your van build and then try and work out a rough budget. But I will say, having done two van builds, we've gone over our budget twice. So my best advice to you is have a budget in mind, but be prepared to spend a little bit more than that when the van build's finished. So now you've got the van and you've got a budget in mind. Don't underestimate the planning stage of a van build. Now things are definitely subject to change with van builds. We changed so much about this van partway through the build, and we even did the same on the T4. But it's a really good idea to sit down and plan your van build. Do you want it to have a toilet? Do you want it to have a fridge? You need to plan all these things, how they're going to fit together in a big jigsaw puzzle, basically. Having a plan at the start of your van build is going to save you a lot of hassle further down the line, because if you know what you want, then everything you do in the van build is going to be inching closer and closer to that end goal that you set right at the very start. So you've spent absolutely ages searching for the right van, working out a budget and planning out how you want this camper van to look. Now it's time to get to work. Now firstly, don't get overwhelmed with van builds, especially if it's your first time. We certainly did, and I know it can seem daunting to build yourself a home on wheels. Take it each step at a time. Things are going to crop up, and if it takes you longer, it takes you longer. The end result is going to be really worth it. And that leads me nicely on to the preparation stage of a van build. So for our two van builds, right at the very start, we give everything a really good deep clean, so we're left with a nice blank canvas to work with. With the old vans that we've done, the Ducato and the T4, that came with a lot of surface rust. So it's a really good idea to treat that with some red oxide primer, file it down, so when you put your build in, you haven't got a base van rusting underneath. This also includes filling any holes, because the last thing you want is to put a nice subfloor down and have loads of rain and road muck coming up through your floor and ruining your build. And once you've done all that, it's on to the fun stuff. Once you're left with a blank canvas, it's a really good idea to get all the exterior work done on the van. Cut any holes for windows or skylights. You need to do it at this stage because it's going to be a lot harder further down the line. It's exactly what we did, and it works out great, because once they're in, you can start planning the rest of the build and start putting some timber in. Now, an absolutely vital step of any van build is the insulation, because the last thing you want is to be somewhere really cold or really hot, having not insulated your van that well, and suffer the consequences. Luckily for us, and for you guys listening to this video, we've done that research already. We knew that insulation was a vital step of the build, so we approached it with a 3-step process. Closed cell foam on the bare metal, fluffy insulation for all the gaps and crevices, and then for the big bits where we wanted insulated, we used the PIR insulation board. And that left us with a really insulated van. It's cool in the summer and warm in the winter. Pay very close attention to this stage of the build. You won't regret it. So now you're at a point where you can start making really good changes to the inside of your van build. You're adding your walls, you're adding your ceiling, you're putting a subfloor down, and things are starting to take shape. Don't be afraid of changes mid-build. This is something that we found extremely difficult when we did our Ducato build, because things just weren't working out exactly how we wanted them to. We had made a plan right at the very start of the build, and if things weren't going our way, we thought we'd failed. We learned quickly that it's okay to change things mid-build. My best advice to you is, when you're doing your van build, be open-minded and be subject to change, because van builds are not black and white, they are grey, totally grey. Ultimately, the end goal of your van build is to make it uniquely yours. You're going to have a van conversion that is unlike anyone else's because you built it. So when you're building your camper van, try and make use of every space. Everything in our Ducato has multiple uses. We've got a sofa that houses our diesel heater, clothes storage, fridge and toilet. Everything in this van has multiple uses. and it's a really good idea to make your van the same. And a really important part of having a really functional camper van is making a really safe and efficient off-grid electrical system. Now, not everyone is going to want to make an off-grid system. I know it's a daunting step of the build for a lot of people, but having done 2 van builds and being in your position, being absolutely petrified of touching any cables, it was absolutely fine. And the best part about it all is we make our own electric. What more could you ask for? If this is something that you don't want to tackle yourself, there are loads of companies that will install van build electrics for you, but this will come at a premium. If you want to have a go at doing it yourself but don't feel like sourcing all the products, there are websites you can go on and get sent pre-made kits that you can just plug and play into your camper van. Or you could go at it like we did, source everything yourself. We've used 12 Volt Planet on 2 separate van builds, and they're basically a one-stop shop for anything van build electrics. We found them really good to work with. But at the end of the day, the end goal is having a really functional electric system. It doesn't matter how you get there, if you do it yourself or not, as long as it's safe and usable for the van you're building. So you've got a fully off-grid electrical system, and the van build is well and truly on the way to being done. My best advice for you at this point is do not underestimate how long things are going to take. Van builds are definitely a labour of love, and camper vans are not made overnight. So don't worry if something that you thought was going to take you a day ends up taking you a week, or something you thought was going to take you an hour ends up taking you 6. It's no big deal. The end result is going to be absolutely amazing because you made it and it's inside your camper van. Don't be afraid to spend a little bit longer on certain areas of the van build that you just want to give a little bit more attention, because it'll pay off in the end and your camper van will look all the better for it. And on a similar note, don't worry about things being perfect. If this is going to be the first time you do a van conversion, things are not likely to be perfect. I mean, looking around me now, things are not perfect. This was our first van build. Yes, it's lovely. Yes, it's usable and we love it so much. But there are so many things that we already want to change and are going to change. If this is your first time picking up hand tools or power tools, then the woodwork isn't likely going to be the best. But don't worry, it's all a learning curve, and at the end of the day, when you're sipping a pina colada on a beach in Spain, you're not going to be worrying that a little bit of wood you cut to make your sofa isn't quite perfect. And once you're at a stage where the van build is nearing completion, make sure you add finishing touches that make it your home. You don't want it to look like everyone else's van build. You want to add some custom artwork just to tie the whole place together. Luckily for me, Rosie did all that for me, so I didn't have to worry about it. And the last couple of things to mention are very important. Van builds are never finished. As much as you think when you're done with a van build it's finished and you're never going to pick up a power tool again, you're wrong. Van builds are never finished. Like I said, there are loads of things we're going to change on our Ducato because we've been in the space for a hell of a lot of time and we know what works for us and we know what we want to change. So just accept the fact that you're always going to want to be upgrading, improving or changing things in your van build, and that's totally fine. And once you're left with a finished van build, it's time to set off and hit the road to reap the rewards of all that hard work that you pumped into making a really nice tiny home on wheels. Traveling in a van is unlike any other travel me and Rosie have ever experienced. It gives you total freedom of where you can go and what you can see, but it does come with some compromises. Van life isn't all as glamorous as what people make out it to be on Instagram. There are certain compromises that you're just going to have to live with, like emptying your own toilet, having very limited storage, living in a really small space, and this is important if you're going traveling with your partner. It is a really small space, so make sure your relationship is pretty solid before you take the plunge. And also, it's a moving vehicle. These things break down. You might be in Portugal like us and have your alternator go on you. You're just going to have to get it fixed. That's one of the things that you're just going to have to deal with when traveling in a van. But the pros definitely outweigh the cons. So if you've watched this far into the video and it's inspired you to take on your own van conversion or given you that little push with your own build that you're currently doing, then we've done our job. We absolutely love building vans. It's a passion of ours and we love getting stuck into an empty van and just making the space come alive, because ultimately these van builds are just a way for us to get out there and see the world. Our first big trip indoor with the Ducato was a 3-month trip all the way around Europe. We ended up doing 10 countries in 3 months, which was absolutely spectacular. So over the next couple of months we're going to be putting together a little series about van life in Europe, breaking down what it takes to get there, the cost involved, and all the little tips and tricks that people won't tell you unless they've done it themselves. So stick around for that. We're going to be releasing those videos very soon. And if you have watched this far into the video, then you're obviously someone who likes watching us and has watched us for a while. Thank you so much for sticking around. Me and Rosie are actually back into work at the moment, so we're finding it a little bit difficult to get out there and film videos for you guys. But thank you for bearing with us, and thank you for watching these videos as they come out. We are really trying, and we can't wait until the time comes where we're back on the road, filming full time and posting every week for you guys. If this is your first video of ours that you've seen and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, drop the video a like, and leave us any comments or questions you've got about van builds, and let us know if you're going to take one on yourself. We wish you the absolute best of luck with your van builds and your van life adventures wherever they may take you. Stay tuned for the next one, but until then, we'll catch you next time.